In the early 2000s, a London rap group known as the So Solid Crew burst onto the scene and were loved and hated in equal measure. Their music was electrifying, their concerts were dangerous, and as we'll get into, they changed the face of British music and culture forever. In the late 90s and early 2000s, internet access was very limited, and social media didn't exist. If you didn't have a record deal, then you would have no records for people to listen to. And without being co-signed by a major label, it would be unlikely that radio stations would play your music. To help break these barriers, illegal pirate radio stations were broadcasting all across UK cities, particularly in London. This typically involved placing an aerial on top of a tower block, which provided the station with the furthest possible reach. And it was within this environment that the So Solid Crew began. The idea of the So Solid Crew came to one of its members in a dream. Mega Man, who was seen as the crew's leader, told Link Up TV, "In 1997, I was in jail. I had a dream that we're going to make loads of money. We're going to build a crew." Mega Man got out of jail and was looking at collectives from across the pond such as Wu-Tang, Rockefeller, and Bad Boy Records, and was inspired to do something similar. The So Solid Crew was formed, and the pirate radio station Supreme FM hosted So Solid Sundays, where MCs and producers from the crew would broadcast live from this station. Gradually, more and more artists became part of the So Solid Crew, which grew from 19 members to 30. All of the members emerged from the South London area of Battersea. Although they were inspired by US hip-hop artists, they were not rapping over hip-hop beats, and instead were rapping over garage music. This was a type of dance music that evolved from R&B, drum and bass, house, and jungle music. Also, the rapping they were performing was inspired by the US, but also from Britain's Caribbean culture, and particularly the Jamaican tradition of toasting, which involves talking or chanting over a mic. Around this time, a lot of British artists rapped with American accents. However, artists like London Posse, Derek B, and Cookie Crew were rapping in their native British accents, and not shying away from how they spoke naturally. So Solid would continue this trend even further. In the year 2000, the So Solid Crew released their first single, Oh No. Their music had a distinctly darker sound than the garage music that came before it, and this track is arguably the first ever grime song. The rapper Wiley, who is often considered the creator or godfather of grime music, said that whoever made the beat of this song invented grime. In an interview, he said, "Whoever made Oh No, that's the word. Whoever made that, they started grime, 100%. So Solid was gaining momentum, but also gaining a bad reputation. However, the negative publicity So Solid received was usually not from their own actions, but from violent incidents conducted by audience members at their concerts. In March of 2001, a teenager was beaten and stabbed to death at a So Solid gig in Luton, and this generated a lot of bad publicity for the group. But only a few months later, So Solid went from the underground to the mainstream through a single song. They were trying to fit so many members of their crew into a 3-minute song that they calculated that each member would get 21 seconds on the mic, which led to their hit single, 21 Seconds. The song sold 118,000 copies in its first week and reached #1 on the UK charts. Part of this success was its visually impressive music video, which took inspiration from extravagant videos in American hip-hop. Joseph J.P. Patterson, the editor of Complex UK, would write, "This was the first time anything from the black British music scene could give its US counterpart a run for their money at. This was Hype Williams level stuff, and the people lapped it up. We dissected it in school, every break, every lunchtime, for months. It was our ringtone for just as long." The group was essentially venturing into uncharted territory and were the first British rap group to enter the music charts. So Solid Crew member Harvey said in an interview, "There wasn't anyone else to share it with. There wasn't any other rappers by our side. We were in the charts with Robbie Williams and Kylie Minogue, the Black Boys from Battersea." In November, they released the single They Don't Know, which reached #3 on the UK charts. They also released an album of the same name, which peaked at #6 in the albums charts. However, this success came with its pitfalls, as the So Solid Crew suddenly became targets. So Solid Crew member Asher D was a successful child actor before joining the crew, and was regularly mugged and beaten by people in his neighborhood, purely on the basis that he was famous. When he was 15, he was attacked by 2 men and stabbed in the neck with a broken bottle. So now, as a member of the So Solid Crew, things were getting even more dangerous. The So Solid member Harvey claimed that they were now threatened by every gang in Britain, and Because there were so many members and their success came out of nowhere, most of them were still living in their neighborhoods in Battersea and were seen as targets. Lisa Mafia had since explained, "We were still living in the same grimy estates, seeing exactly the same people, some of who were awful. What could our management do? Move 30 of us out of the estate?" As the group's leader, Mega Man made sure that every single one of its 30 members got paid. He said in an interview in 2017, "We were the first UK garage crew to go to #1. The label was supporting members who weren't signed to them, paying for cars, food, and clothing. Sometimes the label said they weren't going to pay for something, but I was like, you are, or I'm not leaving my house." I was looking at the Puff Daddies and rappers of the world who were doing million-dollar videos, and I didn't want to be any less cheesy than them. And while the So Solid crew was the target of violent incidents, one particular member was a perpetrator. In October of 2001, Scat D narrowly escaped jail after he was charged with physically assaulting a 15-year-old fan. A month later, 2 crowd members were shot and suffered leg wounds while So Solid performed at the London Astoria. The incident at London Astoria had nothing to do with So Solid, but the authorities came to the opinion that their concerts had become too dangerous. The So Solid crew were one of the biggest artists in 2001, but their 2002 tour was canceled. Police decided that holding So Solid concerts was too risky and cost too much money to police, so they were shut down. In the aftermath, So Solid member Oxide spoke about what happened in London Astoria and said, "They're maybe not good enough to catch the perpetrators, so they're trying to blame it on us." He went on to say that other venues were happy to hold their concerts and pay for extra security, but it was the police that had stopped them from touring. He said, "When the clubs were talking to the police saying we were going to play on a night, they were told you need to pay for extra policing to be ready in case anything happens. The tickets were selling, the promoters were happy, it's just the police. They just really don't want us in the clubs." 2002 saw So Solid surrounded by a mixture of love and hate. In March 2002, Asher D received an 18-month prison sentence for the possession of a gun, something that confirmed the opinions of their biggest critics. But the context was that Asher D needed to carry a gun to protect himself and his family. In a taped police interview, Asher D said, "Obviously, having possession of a gun is illegal, but I was scared for my family's safety and my own safety." The crew would be loved and hated in equal measure. While the So Solid crew were being thrashed by the media for their violent concerts, their album received a nomination for the Mercury Prize, which is probably the most prestigious music prize in the UK. Ultimately, the establishment saw them as glamorizing and propagating violence in the UK. It got to the stage where any incidence of violence was blamed on So Solid. On New Year's Eve 2002 in Birmingham, teenagers Letitia Shakespeare and Charlene Ellis were shot dead in the crossfire between rival gangs. This was an appalling, awful event, and people across Britain were looking for someone to point the finger at. The then Culture Minister Kim Howells said, "The events in Birmingham are symptomatic of something very, very serious. For years, I have been very worried about these hateful lyrics that these boasting macho idiot rappers come out with. Idiots like the So Solid crew are glorifying gun culture and violence. It's something new. I heard very interesting comments about violence in Victorian times and thugs on the street, but they didn't have these methods of popularizing this stuff. It is very worrying, and we ought to stand up and say it." In response to this criticism, Mr. Shavs from So Solid said in an interview, "Now black music in this country is getting bigger. The problem was, we were the only ones up there at the time. The government didn't like it. We were made scapegoats. We were in South London, but if something happened in Birmingham, it would be because of us." Around this time, British people were listening to Jay-Z, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg, but didn't appreciate it when people from their own country spoke about their struggles. In a 2013 interview, Harvey reflected on this controversy and said, "Thing is, we are British, just like you. So shouldn't you all be proud of us? You love American rappers, and half of them have gone to jail on murder and firearm charges. But still, they come here and they get maximum love. Meanwhile, all people here say is, ban So Solid. Why? Be proud of us instead, man. Because bottom line is this, we've done something no other crew in this country has done." Off the back of the success of their first album, the group hoped that they could branch out into their own solo careers. One of its most prominent members, Romeo, released a solo album in 2002 and sold just 40,000 copies. A similar situation happened to Lisa Mafia, whose 2003 album First Lady peaked at number 44 in the UK charts. The group eventually decided to clean up their act and remove some of the more unsavory characters from the group. In 2003, they released their second album, Second Verse, but by all accounts, it was a failure. In 2004, Asher D said, "We're a smaller crew now. We got rid of a lot of people who weren't pulling their weight or who were causing trouble. We changed directions on our second album, but he admitted it hasn't done as well as the first one though. The So Solid crew never officially broke up, but just started to fade away. 2005 was a year when the different paths taken by these members couldn't be further apart. Asher D had been given a role in the 50 Cent movie Get Rich or Die Trying, whereas fellow So Solid member Carl Morgan was given a life sentence for murder after killing a partner of his ex-girlfriend. When Lisa Mafia's solo career didn't pan out, she set up her own label and signed underground artists. She said in an interview, "I don't think being famous should stop you from being on your grind and making sure you get paid. Some people think they're too famous to get a normal job, but if you're not able to pay your bills, are you just gonna sit there and go broke?" Harvey has since gone on to do more music as well as acting in movies and on the West End. So Solid member Swizz has become a socially conscious rapper, and in 2020 he launched Black Pound Day, an initiative where people across the UK are encouraged to buy something from a black-owned business. But by far the most successful So Solid member has been Asher D, who just finished the final season in his role as Deshane in the Netflix series Top Boy. But the success of the So Solid crew can be seen in different ways, and its spirit of having a shared success spans way beyond its members. After So Solid's first album was released, other artists were brought up, such as The Streets, Dizzy Rascal, Wiley, Kano, and Skepta. British rapper Tiny Tempa has said, "When first seeing So Solid, my whole life just changed. I vividly remember watching the television and going ballistic. Ultimately, if it wasn't for them, we may not have even been here doing what we're doing. The standards they set have definitely inspired a lot of the next generation of grime, urban, or garage MCs. They did an amazing job." And the rapper Chip said in 2013, "I will say openly I'm from the school of So Solid. It passes down from jungle into garage, into grime, into this UK grime rap or whatever's happening right now. It's from the school of So Solid." And their influence goes beyond music. For aspiring musicians, they were the blueprint for many. But for the rest of us, they gave us hope that we too could achieve greatness, no matter where you came from and how you showed up in the world. And in a 2017 interview with The Guardian, Lisa Mafia said, "A guy in Birmingham recently said he opened his own car wash because of this. He has 5 now." Make sure to subscribe for more.